Welcome to episode 100 of the Driller Newscast, your weekly update on the news and stories impacting the drilling and water industry. I'm your host, Brock Yorty, and we did it. We made total depth. If that was 100, that's where we're at right now for our 100th episode. We're about to set the screen, casing, gravel pack, effectively grout that monster and start developing. And you know what? We've been doing a hell of a job of developing what breaking news, what news matters to you, what's happening in the drilling industry, in the water industry, the geothermal industry, policies. In the past 99 episodes, we've talked about a lot. And over a decade ago, I started writing for the Driller. And it came from coming back from the Atacama Desert, Moquegua, Peru. I was on a gold mine there, Calatos gold mine. And we had to figure out how to reduce the amount of water usage to continue to do exploration mining to prevent that water from being taken from the locals who needed it. We did it. We reduced it by 80%. And it's a big deal. I came back and I said, hey, Driller, national driller at that time, with legends of Porky and Wayne and Dean Larimore doing the sales. I said, hey, you should interview me. And the editorial team was busy, said, we'd love you to write it. And it moved from there. And over the years, we've seen how our industry has grown, how things have been impacted. Crazy pandemic, becoming fully digital. And I realized the normal editorial calendar of getting the right information to us that matters can't take 5 or 6 weeks. We need to be talking about it right now. And so that's where we're at right now, episode 100. And I thank you all for joining me for this, for supporting me. I know the Driller team was like, is there really enough news to have a weekly newscast that's 30 minutes? You're going to write 30 minutes every week? My wife, my children on Friday night, when they're like, what are you doing? And I'm pulling the latest stories so that we can get it filmed and off to post-production so that you have it Monday morning, 6:30, or whenever you consume it, from the podcasts on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to YouTube to coming to thedriller.com and interacting with all the great content and all the great contributors, columnists, and team. It's plenty of ways. Episode 100 is not going to disappoint you because we're expanding the Driller Newscast team. We're expanding what the Driller looks like. I got a great featured guest for you. But before we get to that great featured guest, I want to introduce you to JJ Smith, our Washington correspondent. That's right. We've put a Washington correspondent on the payroll. He's a United States Marine. He has had multiple decades working in D.C., has a White House press pass, has been in the press room for W and Obama and on, and has worked in construction safety and EPA and breaking stories. And JJ Smith, you're about to meet him. We're going to talk about what's going on. He's a veteran in this industry, and he's going to continue to get us quotes and be at the next time the EPA is at the Supreme Court, or the Navajo Nation is at the Supreme Court, or water, or pipeline, or geothermal, or anything that's going on. We got boots on the ground, and he wants to get those boots muddy. We're about to meet him. For our feature this week, as we've led up to this week, I've put out my favorite featured interviews and stories. And last week we talked about 99 Luft balloons. Well, Our feature interview this week is Sammy Hagar. I can't wait for the discussion that we had for you to see it. Thanks for joining us. Hi, this is Brock Yordy. I am in DC, and it's the 100th episode, and I am super excited to introduce to you our Washington correspondent, JJ, who I'm going to let introduce himself and what he wants out of the help from us in the industry, but all the cool things we can do. That's right. The Driller Newscast, the Driller media platform is going from let's talk about some stuff to let's be in the middle of it with having a true journalist on the beat. Go ahead and introduce yourself, JJ.
Thank you, Brock. As the Washington correspondent for the Driller, I intend on monitoring Congress and the federal agencies for any rules, regulations, or legislations that impact the drilling industry. And I urge the viewers or readers of the Driller to, if you have a tip or any information on an issue that you think is not getting enough attention, please leave a comment directed towards me on one of the on the Driller, and along with a brief sentence about what the issue is about and your contact information. You can be sure I will follow up. Brock?
Okay, I have some big questions here. How long have you been working in DC?
As a reporter in DC, I've been covering the federal government for about 25 years. I started out my first job out of college. I was offered a job with, of all things, the Catholic News Service. I was with them for about a year before I was hired away by United Press International. And I was with them for about 3 years, first on the national desk as what's called a desk editor, doing rewrites of stories from reporters filed from around the world, to I was made a full reporter, and I covered the DC government when Marion Barry was mayor. So that tells you that. For the last almost 25 years, I've been covering the federal government, both houses of Congress, and whatever federal agency. I've written about energy, I've written about employment, international employment, and even substance abuse treatment policy. And I haven't been shy about holding officials to task when it comes to both spending and policy. Sometimes when policies haven't made sense, I've gone right up to them and asked them about it. I've also gone up to a politician who just lost an election and walked up to him and said, well, what went wrong?
So I guess a big question for me, being here 25 years, we're a blue collar industry that's very important. Water is very important. Geothermal is important. We can see what happens in oil and gas. We can see drilling drives a lot of things. With just in the last couple of weeks of you jumping on and seeing what's happening with the Bureau of Land Management and whatnot, you're not a traditional, at this point, we don't have journalists that are just on the beat anymore. We got a lot of people that are blogging and whatnot. What are you going to bring to this?
Well, again, I have experience covering the federal government. I know where to look to find information that, again, is going to impact the drilling industry. And for the blue collar workers, it's going to impact them because if there's jobs or if there's regulations that stifle jobs, they need to know about it. And we're going to tell them about it. I'm going to do everything I can, work with Brock and Chelsea to get as much information as I can out there to let the readers know. But again, I know where to look for the information. A lot of people don't. Every morning, I read the Federal Register. I have been for years. First thing I do when I get up in the morning, then I'll start going through the different agencies to see if they have any new information coming out, as well as the congressional committees and subcommittees. That might be every day. They add to different hearings that are upcoming. I make sure I check every one of those.
We're really excited. We talk about how we don't have a big enough voice. And you can see as we move into episode 100, 101 and on of the Driller Newscast, the same as the content that we're producing. We are your media news outlets. And having JJ and all of his years of experience, he's also a fellow Devil Dog, United States Marine. It's raining today, and we were going to do this in front of Capitol Hill, and, weather is wild. And I go, hey, where should we meet? And this man's after my own heart, and he goes, hey, let's meet at the Irish pub.
The Dubliner.
And we'll talk over some stuff, and we'll have a couple pints, which is 97% water. It's very important for us.
That's right.
And we're gonna have a lot of fun. I am so happy to welcome JJ to the team. And again, if you have a question, an idea, JJ will be with me at the fly-in this year. We got some great ideas. We got some great stuff, but we need you to help us influence what we want to learn about.
We're not mind readers. Let us know if there's a problem or an issue that you think we should address, and I'll jump on it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
The importance of having boots on the ground, and you can see the enthusiasm of JJ Smith. I can't wait for all the things we can get into, to having him with me at the Smart Water Policy fly-in, to finding out what exactly happened in the courtroom in discussions about water rights and what's happening. And we have to remember that the three most water-stressed states in our country are also the states with the most House seats. And that's very important for us to think about. And as we expand on that, what can we do for news? Our feature interview, I promised you I'm going to deliver. Let's meet Sammy Hagar. For this week's feature, episode 100, I promised you a special guest interview with Sammy Hagar. And I hope you're not disappointed, because it's our new editor-in-chief, Sammy. Sammy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Sammy Hagar, and I can type 55. That's my joke for the day. But yeah, I come from a pretty extensive background in editorialism. I've been an editor for like over a decade now, and I have done every industry you can imagine, but I started in music journalism. I am a huge music fanatic, and yeah, you best expect there will be some playlists that will be coming your way at some point in time. But yeah, I'm just really excited to be a part of this magazine, this amazing group of people, and to learn the industry.
Okay, so you're located in Idaho, and there's a lot going on with water and the environment, and you're out. I see you running in the snow and whatnot. How does that impact you to be with the Driller Media platform, where we're talking a lot about water and the importance of groundwater and championing this industry?
Yeah, I mean, so I actually did write for Eco Magazine for quite a few years. It means a lot to me. Idaho is an absolutely stunning state, as are many of the states in this country. The problem is, if you're not considering the environmental impact of your industry, then you're making a big mistake, because as far as I'm concerned, the minute that salmon are dying in tremendous amounts, or the minute that our water is polluted and people can't enjoy the lakes and the rivers and the beauty of Idaho, we've done something wrong. So it means a lot to me to be a part of this.
Okay, you said you wrote for music. What's one of your most memorable journalistic stories you have? What did you do to dig into a story, or what was just a great interview?
I have interviewed so many people. I've interviewed Dolly Parton. I've interviewed Jack White. I've interviewed, oh gosh, Adam Ant, if you know who that is. I have interviewed quite a few bands, and I've gone to a million different shows. Honestly, I have so many stories, but I think one of the funniest ones was actually when I was starting out. I was literally like 15, 16 years old. I was working as a journalist at a music magazine. I had convinced them. It was literally like, I had told them that I was 18. I was not. And I was going to all these shows for them and covering them. And there was a show that I wanted to go to that they thought was a waste of time. And when I got there, Wayne Coyne, the singer of the Flaming Lips, if you know who that is, it's a pretty big band. He shows up out of nowhere. And everybody knows who he is. I know who he is. So I'm excited. I want to interview him. So I start frantically writing questions down and I'm getting it all prepared. And I'm like, excuse me, Mr. Coyne, like, I would love to interview you. And he's like, you're just a child. Like, that's hilarious. Okay, yeah, let's sit down. So I got this interview with him. And the person that this person came up and was like, can I get a picture of you guys? And she took a photo and she sent the photo unknowingly to me. She sent it to my boss and was like, hey, guess who's here? Wayne Coyne. You should get someone to cover that he's here. And she's like, that's my writer sitting with him. So after that, she didn't question my integrity. She knew. She was like, oh, she knows where the cool shows are. She knows who to interview and how to get interviews with people impromptu. But the funniest thing was, as he was leaving, he bought this massive painting from a local artist, and he's just walking down the street with this huge painting under his arm. And I was like, what are you going to do now? And he turned to me and he said, well, I've got a ton of money and I've got a ton of drugs and all my friends are here, so I'm going to go have fun. And I was like, that's the most unhinged, but that is going to be the subhead to this article. So yeah, it was a really fun time.
That's fantastic. So you've gotten to see a couple columns come in, and there's all sorts of different drilling terminology, no different than there is in the music scene as we talk. What is one thing that's popped up so far as you've been, going through these new articles? You got any questions or thoughts on what drilling is?
Admittedly, my experience with drilling was, first of all, geothermal and geotechnical drilling is covered a lot on Eco Magazine. I did a lot of ocean thermal energy conversion articles, so very, kind of right side by side when it came to ocean drilling. But for me, most of my experience was from Armageddon. Like, that's what I knew. And I was like, well, at least we don't have to save the world from an asteroid. So as long as that's not part of it, I'm excited. Yeah, I've been just kind of diving in, right? Getting to know the industry, looking at who the top contributors are, contributors that we could have, and just trying to see what the voice is. And it just seems like a really authentic, caring, passionate community of really cool people. And that I do understand.
I love the fact that you bring up Armageddon and Michael Bay, Bruce Willis. Like, there's not a driller out there that can go past that show when it's on. And we embody like that story up until they're on the asteroid. And then we're like, but wait, we don't, what is this tube going in? What are they using air? Like, there's so many drilling questions, but the beginning half of this movie, the fact that it's easier to train drillers to be astronauts than it is to train astronauts to be drillers is 100% our industry. We're so tribal and self-taught, and there's instincts, which is I'm music driven too. I know a lot of guys on job sites that they have playlists and they have different things going on. And so there's this big circle here from you mentioning Armageddon and how much we're prideful about, I need my team. I need the people that can have my back, that can make microsecond adjustments, no different than a really good set being played by some of the greatest musicians. And that's fantastic. So the fact that you're an Armageddon fan, we may have to do a crossover episode where we mystery science theater it and talk about why Bruce Willis. Why
Mystery
Bruce
Science
Willis.
Theater is one of my favorite shows of all time. Okay, so you got me there. Done.
Yeah, just that whole scene, and Ben Affleck does audio commentary where he's like, and now Bruce Willis is arguing with NASA rocket scientists over how a transmission's built. And we build drill rigs. And ironically enough, the best R&D that happens is after the drill rig leaves the shop and goes to a customer shop, and they start cutting on it and doing things. So there's lots to dig into.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Bruce Willis fan in general. So that there's that too. So
what do you see as the future as new editor? What stories would you like to embody, or what can we do to grow? We have We have a fresh set of eyes. You're thinking outside the box. What do you see for the Driller?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, you'll probably see some social media posts asking the community what they would like to see, because that always makes a big impact, right? I really care about what the community thinks as I'm creating content. Secondarily, I do come from a pretty strong background. While I have a music background, my most recent jobs were working in huge multi-million dollar industries like the cleaning industry, restoration, remediation, and then in the oncology industry, which is another huge industry in this world. So with that being said, I mean, when I start these jobs, I don't know everything. And I think that's a good thing because it allows me to learn alongside a lot of people. And I feel like these how-tos, these educational pieces of content make a lot of impact on the website. So obviously creating more of that would be terrific. In addition to that, the human side of things, which I feel is not covered a lot in these very professional settings. You'll go to a conference and yes, you'll see pictures of the exhibitor hall, you'll see pictures of, this event or that course. But what I would also like to be able to cover is the people, the human touch of the industry, because that makes such a difference. And I feel like when you know that a person is just a good, honest, hardworking person, then you can actually trust their products or trust the work that they do or the stories that they're writing for the magazine a little bit more.
That's beautiful. And as I've played back and forth with the Sammy Hagar thing and the music side, I think it's the sexiness of the music industry that makes it so easy to tell the stories. And what you've just said about restoration and remediation, oncology, those are the things we need to be championed. So I value that. And we here at the Driller with you, driving us hopefully much faster than 55, we're excited for you and we want to welcome you. And I want to say to the audience, reach out to Sammy. We're always looking for contributors. We're always looking for those stories. Interview, right? If you look at our columnists we have right now, they're not classically trained writers, but they have one hell of a story. If we go back to Wayne Nash and, Porky and all of the legends that contributed, they just wanted to make sure that knowledge was passed on. And now we have a new champion with Sammy that's going to help us do that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, do not be afraid to send in content thinking that you have to have it perfectly edited and perfectly polished. That's the job of an editor like me. I will take that content, I'll work with you, and I will make it into the amazing piece that you want to share, that you want to promote, and that you really want to see on the Driller, because that's what I like to do best. It's my favorite thing. So let me do it.
I love it. Any parting words? I mean, you just gave us a great, hey, everybody, let's all start telling our stories. But any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm just really excited to be a part of this community. It seems like such a wonderful group of people. I cannot wait to get to know each of you personally. You'll probably get an email or a message from me because I am that person that goes out and reaches out. So expect that. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And if it's just to make a joke about Sammy Hagar, I'm all for it. I don't care. I think it's really funny. That's why I go by Sammy, because I think it's hilarious. So
well, thank you, Sammy, and welcome to such an amazing industry. We say very often, like, civilization doesn't progress without drilling, and us being able to tell those stories and pass that knowledge on is so important to so many people out there, and we appreciate having you.
yay, thank you.
Okay, I got you with the rock and roll history last week. It is a Sammy, and she is a powerhouse that's going to help us progress this media platform, tell our stories. So many great things. You saw the enthusiasm. You saw the enthusiasm with JJ Smith. Big things in store for the next 100 episodes. And I have to first thank a couple people because this is a milestone. And everybody that thought yeah, we can produce 30 minutes of the news every week. Thank you. And that starts with former The Driller publisher, still with BMP on some big magazines, The News, Sarah Harding. Thank you for taking my idea to senior management and helping me pitch it to the BMP Media senior management, to Mike Balzano, our next publisher, who allowed it to grow and continued to push that we could continue this. On to now Chelsea Yorty, publisher, my boss, my best friend, my partner, my wife. It's very cool to have you part of this. No different than my parents and Yorty and Son well drilling, my mom doing the books and marketing, my dad out drilling wells. Episode 100 is like just a milestone that I'm happy to be at. The Driller team, thank you so much. Harrison with video editing and production, Tammy and art, Brianna with making sure we get this out every week, Alexandria with all that you do to help that we're seeing what the results look like, Jasmine in marketing, now our new editor-in-chief, Sammy. There's so much we're going to do with you being in the Western United States and having boots in the ground in the middle of Idaho. And like we said with David Baker last week, yeah, there's a lot going on in Idaho that spreads out throughout the rest of the country, versus Sackets, versus the EPA, to the Salmon River, to water rights for BLM land and farmers. So much that we need to talk about there. Next week, we'll go back to our normal episodes. Real quick, huge shout out to Nancy down in San Antonio, all the great feedback you give. Chuck in Connecticut, who is always driving to make sure that water well drillers and geothermal drillers and regulations are right. Thanks, Chuck. Dave Bowers, Robert, Jake, always giving me great feedback. To great guests that are nearly hosts, Jeff Williams with Spafford and Sons Well Drilling in Vermont, David Schulenberg, partner states director for the NGWA in those 8 states. We just talked about him. It's a lot of you out there, Brian and Mike and Chris, and thank you for going, hey, why aren't we talking about this? It's what we need. We need more stories from you, and we're going to continue to have that. My safety challenge, extreme weather. I want you to start thinking about the impacts of ice to thunderstorms to extreme heat and how we handle that with our people. Go out, be safe, and thank you again for supporting the Driller Newscast. Thank you to all of our great manufacturers who have supported us with this and emerging drillers and drill talks and everything. Go to thedriller.com and check it out. I need more emerging drillers. Ask Brock series is back this week. That's great news as well. We're going to continue beyond that. Thanks, everybody. This feels just as good as helping a customer get water again. I love it. Thanks.